Is HMRC really about to force businesses to pay their tax every single month? If that sounds worrying, stick with me for the next few minutes, because this could genuinely change how you manage money in your business. Welcome back to Pension and Benefits Guide. If you're new here, this is the channel where we break down confusing tax, pension, and money changes into simple, practical information you can actually use. So if that sounds useful, make sure you're subscribed, because today's topic is a big one. Here's what's going on. With Making Tax Digital already changing how HMRC works, and the current Labour government's approach to tax, it looks like HMRC is seriously exploring a move towards monthly tax payments for businesses. And depending on which side of this you sit on, that could either be a helpful change or a real headache. Now, here's something that genuinely surprised me when I first came across this. Back in June, HMRC quietly launched a consultation looking at changing when people pay income tax through self-assessment. It closed on the 4th of August. And here's the thing, did you even know it was happening? Unless you regularly read HMRC consultations, which let's be honest, most busy business owners don't, there's a good chance this completely passed you by. That's surprising, because these proposals could potentially affect millions of self-employed people, landlords, and anyone who completes a self-assessment return. As accountants, part of our job is keeping an eye on consultations like this one, because today's consultation can quite often become tomorrow's tax law. This one caught our attention because it isn't really about how much tax you pay, it's about when HMRC wants to collect it. That might sound like a small distinction, but it could have a big impact on your cash flow. Instead of paying tax months after you've earned the money, HMRC is exploring whether it should be collected much sooner, potentially within weeks or months of that income landing in your account. So if you're self-employed, a landlord, or you earn extra income alongside your main job, these proposals are aimed pretty squarely at you. Let's look at what HMRC is actually suggesting. This isn't a one-size-fits-all plan. How you'd be affected depends on how you earn your income, and the consultation focuses on two main groups. The first group is people employed through pay who also complete a self-assessment return. Think of someone with a full-time job who also has rental income, does freelance work in the evenings, or runs a side hustle alongside their normal job. Right now, that extra income is taxed through self-assessment, usually somewhere between 9 and 21 months after it was actually earned. HMRC is asking whether that tax could instead be estimated during the year and collected gradually through your pay tax code, so you're paying it off gradually instead of facing one bigger bill later. The second group is people who rely on self-assessment as their main way of paying tax, self-employed business owners, landlords, and people in partnerships. For this group, HMRC is asking whether the system should eventually shift towards regular monthly or quarterly payments, instead of paying everything after the tax year ends. This is important, it doesn't necessarily mean paying more tax. The amount you owe might stay exactly the same. What changes is when HMRC actually receives it. Instead of you holding onto that money until the following January, HMRC could get it much earlier. And nothing has been decided yet. This is still just a consultation. HMRC was asking whether this is the right direction, and if so, how it should actually work. The earliest suggested start date is April 2029, so there's no surprise change coming next month. But here's where the real impact becomes clear. Why is HMRC even considering changing a system that's been in place for years? According to the consultation, there are three main reasons. First, some people build up a tax bill throughout the year without realizing just how much they'll owe, and then January arrives with a much bigger bill than expected. Second, large annual tax bills can be genuinely hard to pay in one go, and HMRC believes smaller, regular payments could make budgeting easier and reduce the number of people falling into tax debt. Third, this ties into Making Tax Digital. HMRC now gets financial information much more regularly, so they feel the payment system should eventually catch up with that. On paper, those reasons sound fairly reasonable, and for some taxpayers, this approach might genuinely help. Plenty of people struggle with a big January tax bill every year, and smaller, regular payments could ease that pressure. But there's another side to this that doesn't get talked about as much. If tax is collected earlier, the government receives that money earlier too. HMRC isn't presenting this as the main driving force. But it's an unavoidable side effect. Instead of businesses holding onto that cash for several extra months and getting the benefit of that cash flow, it moves into the treasury much sooner. For the government, that's improved cash flow. For business owners, that's reduced cash flow. It's exactly the same amount of tax, just sitting in a different bank account. Before we go further, if you're finding this useful, drop a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps this channel keep making videos like this one. Here's the part one thing really matters. The amount of tax you pay doesn't necessarily change, but the timing does. And if you've been in business for any length of time, you'll know that timing can matter just as much as the amount itself. Say you're used to keeping around 20 grand set aside in your business for your January tax bill. You've been putting that money to one side gradually. You know it isn't really yours to spend, and you know HMRC will want it eventually, but until then, it's still working for your business. It might be helping pay suppliers while you wait on customer payments. It might help you build up stock ahead of a busy period. It could cover wages during a quieter month. Or it might simply be sitting there as a safety buffer for when something unexpected happens. One thing we've learned from working with thousands of business owners over the years is that cash flow and profit are two completely different things. We've seen genuinely profitable businesses run into real trouble simply because the cash wasn't in the bank at the right moment. That's why, when we first read this consultation, our minds didn't go straight to tax, they went straight to cash flow. If some or all of that tax starts leaving your business months earlier than it used to, that's money you no longer have available to run things day to day, or to fall back on in an emergency. We had a client recently where one of his subcontractors wrote off a work van. He had to replace it fast, and needed to fund a temporary solution before the insurance side was even sorted. For businesses with strong cash reserves, a change like this might not cause many problems. For businesses where cash flow is already tight, this looks very different. Cash flow problems don't usually happen because a business isn't profitable, they happen because money comes in and goes out at different times. And this proposal changes those timings. For some businesses, it won't make much difference at all. For others, it could completely reshape how they manage working capital throughout the year. That's probably why opinions on this are so divided. So where does this leave us? The first thing to remember is that this isn't a new law, it's a consultation. There are genuine arguments on both sides, and neither view is simply right or wrong. What matters most right now is understanding the direction of travel. HMRC has been moving towards receiving financial information more frequently through making tax digital, and this consultation suggests tax payments might eventually follow that same pattern. So if you're a business owner, it's worth thinking about your cash flow now, rather than waiting until any changes are officially announced. The businesses that usually handle changes like this best aren't always the biggest ones, they're the ones that plan ahead. So here's a question for you: if this change went ahead, would it help your business budget better, or would it put pressure on your cash flow? Let me know in the comments. If you want to understand more about where the wider direction of UK tax policy might be heading, I've got another video linked just for you that's well worth watching next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.